PNC Bank and the PNC Foundation have been great community partners. They're hosting this luncheon today with actress and speaker Erin Gray, and all of the proceeds benefit women in distress. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and while we do programs throughout the year, October is an opportunity to really call attention to the issue of domestic violence, family violence. And so this is one of a number of events that are going on during this month. We really rely on community support to keep all of our services and programs at Women in Distress free and open to anyone who comes to our door, regardless of their immigration status or where they're coming from. So contributions from the community. A good way is to go to our website, which is www.womenindistress.org. And there's a variety of things that people can do to get involved as a volunteer, to donate.
An organization like this is always in a fundraising mode and needs private funds to exist and to thrive. So I'm here to help and support that.
I think Women in Distress and the causes that its champions are urgently needed in this country and worldwide. I'm a huge proponent and supporter for their endeavors, and I'm proud to be here and proud to be an advocate for the message that they are sending, that it is not okay for 1 in 3 women to be victims of domestic abuse, and we need to support their efforts and change that statistic now.
I actually initiated this series and developed it 6 years ago with the hope of bringing powerful women to South Florida. Many of the famous people that came to Florida were typically men, and we really wanted to highlight women and use that as an example to the nonprofits that focus on women and young girls to really heighten their awareness in the community and hopefully drive more funding to their needs.
I'm here to pay it forward. I'm here to speak about the issues and speak about issues that are really close to my heart.
On behalf of all of my PNC colleagues, I'd like to thank each of you for joining us today and for supporting Women in Distress. We are only able to support our community because the community supports us.
Women in Distress is entering its 38th year, and we're the Domestic Violence Center serving all of Broward County, providing a whole range of services: emergency shelter, counseling, therapy, education, and advocacy. Last year, more than 3,000 people came through our doors. More than 4,800 people called our emergency crisis line seeking help. More than 63,000 people heard our message out in the community. And October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. There are a number of events, including this great luncheon today, happening. Kind of a capstone for the month will be our Safe Walk, which is on Saturday, October 27th. So I know many of you, including Dr. Sam, who's just been evangelical about putting her team together. But it's a way to support services for adults and, importantly, for children who are victims of family violence. Unfortunately, victims who are witnessing violence, but also being victims themselves. About a year and a half ago, we moved to the new Jim and Jan Moran Family Center campus in Deerfield Beach that doubled our capacity to serve victims of family violence. And it makes us, I think, one of the largest of the 42 domestic violence centers here in Florida. But more importantly, it helps us closer to meeting the need. As Pauline Grant, we were talking at lunch, and Pauline and I served together on the board of Women in Distress a number of years ago, and with other boards. Domestic violence is an issue that affects everyone. It affects some more directly than others. I would say that there's probably not a person in this room that it has not been affected by family violence, as a coworker, a family member, someone close to them. And violence can take many forms. But you're here taking that step to say it's not okay, and there is a community solution. So we greatly appreciate the partnership of PNC and its leadership on community issues, including those that affect our families and children here in South Florida.
One of my favorite quotes is from Confucius, and he said, to put the world in order, to put the world right in order, we must first put the nation in order. And to put the nation in order, we must first put the family in order. And in order to put the family in order, we must first cultivate our personal life, and we must first set our hearts right. So we are here today because we know it takes a gift of the heart to change the world for better, and that there is no greater gift than that which is to serve others. So I believe that your goals are my goals, and that your vision is my vision, a vision of peace, hopefully, amongst men, and that we've come to understand that to stop the violence in our society and in our schools and on our streets, we have to stop the violence in our homes. But how do we do that? Because when we're talking about domestic violence, we're talking about issues that there's so many different dynamics in play, and there are some very tough things that we have to face and do. Albert Einstein once said, "Man must cease attributing his problems to his environment and learn again to exercise his will, his personal responsibility." And I believe we each have to take responsibility to grow and to heal. And he wasn't doing that. I believe that when you blame others, you give up your power to change. And we each need to choose to be happy, choose to do the right thing, and choose to live with a healthy relationship. As I faced the loss of dreams and the possibility of bankruptcy and was completely worn out by the emotional abuse, I found myself literally shattered into 1,000 pieces. And a dear friend who had been one of the few people that my husband had allowed in our home, she knew. She had witnessed. She said, "When you're out there, you are strong, you are confrontive, you are awesome, you are the friend that I love to be with, but when you're at home, you're like a geisha girl. I don't know you, I don't recognize you." And thank you. So she came over, picked me up off the kitchen floor, I'll never forget it, and she took me, she said, "Shut up, I'm taking you someplace, you need help." And she took me to Haven House, a battered woman's shelter, and I was so embarrassed. I mean, I didn't understand why I was there. I didn't need shelter. How could I have allowed this to happen? I was perplexed. I mean, I knew there was a part of me that was really strong and very capable on many levels, and yet here I was completely shut down, numb, fragmented, helpless, unable to cope, and felt just like I did when I was 7, speechless. Couldn't talk. All I can say is, thank goodness for the women at Haven House. Because I went to a psychiatrist paying $135 an hour, and believe me, she knew. She knew nothing, and she did not know how to help me. As a matter of fact, I kept wanting to say to her, "You know, you got a problem with anorexia. Can I talk to you about that?" It's true. Anyway, these women, they opened their arms and they gave me the understanding that I needed. They went right to task. They knew exactly what had happened. They told me how I had ended up in this unhealthy relationship, and then how and what I needed to reconnect myself, and most importantly, they gave me the tools to begin the journey of empowerment, to understand what is a healthy relationship and the steps that I needed to take to create it and to speak out. And for this, I'm forever grateful, which is why I'm here paying it forward. Did you know that about 30% of female murder victims are slain by their husbands and boyfriends, and behind every high-profile occurrence of battering or death, there are countless more women and children who are dealing with domestic violence, because the majority of domestic violence victims do not report their victimizations. And yet, domestic violence is one of the leading causes of injury and death to women. None of us choose to be abused or to be assaulted, but we can choose how we respond to adversity. We may not have chosen to live at a time when domestic violence is so much in the news, but we can choose what we can do about it in our communities. Now, if we believe the media and statistics, we would have to conclude that this is the worst of times regarding family violence. However, I'm here to give you a different message. I'm here to tell you that this is the best of times. Why? Because we have collectively chosen to face this issue and heal it. The good news is that since the creation of a powerful grassroots effort in the 60s and 70s to build battered women's shelters throughout the United States through programs like Violence Against Women's Act, the rate of intimate partner violence did decline dramatically. We don't always hear this. And the fact that the rate of intimate partner violence against females declined 53% between 1993 and 2008. Wow, that is, in my opinion, amazing. Now, the bad news is because of our economic crisis, domestic violence against women and children has started to increase. At the same time, a lot of state and government funding that those shelters and those advocacy groups and crisis programs that they rely on have decreased significantly, and consequently shelters are closing. And many more are facing that possibility. Haven House, which is the shelter that I have raised money for and worked closely with, has cut back in so many ways. I mean, we've lost our psychologist who does art therapy with the children, for example. Anyway, now I feel more than ever we need to keep the momentum going, keep those percentages of decrease of violence, and we need to help people, and we need people like you to take actions to keep this alive, this movement alive. Now, my next story reminds me of how clearly we need to value another person, no matter the circumstances. There is a well-known motivational speaker, and he starts his speech out by holding up a $20 bill, and he says, who out there wants this $20 bill? And of course, just about everybody raises their hand. He says, fine. He says, what if I do this? And he crumbles it up. He says, okay, how many of you still want it? And the hand still rose, the same number. He said, great. And then he drops it on the floor, and he grinds it into the dirt, and he really crumples it up, and he picks it up. And he said, now who wants it? Now again, the hands were up there. And he said, friends, he said, you have all learned a valuable lesson. No matter what I did to the money, you still wanted it because it did not decrease in value. It is still worth $20. Many times in our lives, we are dropped, crumbled, and ground into the dirt by the decisions we make and by the circumstances that come our way. We feel as though we are worthless. But no matter what has happened or what will happen, you will never lose your value. Dirty, crumpled, or finely creased, you're still priceless. And inside every victim, there is an undamaged, whole, perfect soul that needs to be rediscovered and valued. So for me, the bottom line on stopping family violence is to be willing to get involved. Give yourself permission to take action. Because as we know, it takes a commitment of the heart to change the world.